Son shouts, "My wife doesn't lie." After shocking $800 theft accusation, wait for the waiter's eye. Jack stood frozen in the overcrowded town hall, the hum of conversations morphing into a distant echo as the accusation stabbed through him. Clara, the diner waitress, with her tear-streaked face, claimed his wife had stolen $800 from her tips. Whispers whipped around him like a sudden storm. Lisa? No way, he thought, disbelief clouding his mind. His heart raced, blood draining from his face as the disbelieving gazes of his neighbors pricked at his soul. "My wife doesn't lie," he shouted, panic splattering his voice against the walls. Desperation clung to him like grease on a mechanic's hands. Jack's fists clenched at his sides. He wanted to defend Lisa, uphold the truth that had always been his guiding light. Yet, as he caught sight of Clara's expression, he sensed the fragile layers of hurt she bore. This wasn't just a public scandal, it was a human tragedy, a reflection of desperation rather than malice. As days crawled by, the accusations weighed heavy on Jack's mind. Instead of defending Lisa with fury, he found himself digging for answers, navigating through layers of tangled emotions. He couldn't leave Lisa to face this alone. The diner had been a staple of their lives, the place where laughter mingled with comfort food. Now it was fraught with tension. Every visit to the diner felt charged, volatile. Clara, the once vibrant waitress, avoided eye contact, her laughter replaced by a heaviness. Jack's voice echoed in his mind. "Maybe it's not just her name at stake, Clara. Maybe it's about us too." He felt compelled to understand her struggle, her desperation. One chilly afternoon, he noticed her silhouette through the diner's glass door and decided to learn what really happened that night. Approaching her table felt like stepping onto a tightrope. Would she lash out again, or would she let him in? "Clara, I just want to talk," he began, trying to soften the tension. Her face was a canvas of worry, lines of doubt etched deep. What if we explored what's really going on? Their conversation hung in the air, thick with unresolved pain. Jack saw the flicker of vulnerability cross her face. Then it crumpled as she opened up about bills looming over her like shadows. Jack could relate. Every slowdown in the shop felt like a downturn in fortune, his deep-seated fears echoing in the silence. "It's tough, isn't it?" he murmured, instincts at odds. Maybe, behind this accusation, they were just two souls flailing in the grip of life. But in that fragile moment of connection, something sparked. A chance for clarity or chaos hung wildly in the balance. Before he could decipher the swirl of emotions suffocating them both, the cacophony of the diner swelled, voices rising and falling like waves crashing against a shore. What will it take to confront this madness, he thought, anxiety clawing at his throat. Clara's walls began to crack, but could he break through fully, or would he drown in this turmoil? Jack felt the sweat trickle down his back. He realized their next words could redefine everything, or tear them apart even more. The heat of the moment pressed heavily on Jack's chest, a torrent of thoughts swirling as Clara's eyes flashed with an unsettling mix of vulnerability and defensiveness. He had approached her seeking common ground, but the ground felt utterly unsteady. He needed a plan, a calculated way to navigate the quagmire that their lives had devolved into. "I know things are hard for you, but let's find a way to sort this out," he insisted, desperation tinged with hope. This wasn't just about the money. It was about trust, reputation, and the longevity of their own relationships. He couldn't afford to see Lisa's name dragged through the mud without trying to lift it out. But Clara recoiled, a shadow passing over her features. "You don't understand. They'll believe me. They always do." Her voice cracked, revealing the burdens she carried, one that echoed the financial pressures bearing down on Jack as well. His instinct was to challenge her assertion, to remind her that belief didn't equate to truth, yet something held him back. He caught the quiver in her hands, the tension in her shoulders. There was more to her than the accusation. She was a person grappling with pressures he hadn't considered. Jack resolved to approach this not with anger, but with understanding. Perhaps they could find a way to connect deeper. "Clara, let's talk this through. Can we meet tomorrow after your shift? Just you and me." A flicker of surprise crossed her face before she glanced away, biting her lip as if weighing the stakes. "Fine. But if you think I'm going to let you make excuses for Lisa—" "I'm not," he interrupted hastily, avoiding further provocation. "I just want to clear the air. We can't keep going like this." After she agreed, Jack walked home, senses heightened, his mind racing with possibilities. Each step felt heavier as he weighed the implications of his promise to meet Clara. He thought about Lisa, her unwavering innocence, the weight of the world resting on her shoulders, now exacerbated by this sordid allegation. At home, Jack settled into a physical and mental routine, cooking, cleaning, trying desperately to maintain some semblance of normalcy in a world that had devolved into chaos. But the simmering tension refused to be ignored. They sat at the dinner table as if exhausted soldiers returning from battle, each glance filled with unspoken concern. "Jack, about Clara," Lisa began, her voice trailing off as she searched for the right words. "I talked to her," he blurted, regretting his impulsiveness immediately. Such revelations invited questions he wasn't ready to discuss. Lisa looked up, her eyes wide with confusion. "You did what? Why?" "Because she needs to be heard, Lisa. She's struggling just like us. I thought, maybe there's a way to fix this." He chose his words meticulously, but her startled expression sent a ripple of unease through him. "You can't just take her word for it." There was a tremor in her voice, a mixture of anger and fear that weighed down the atmosphere. "She might be lying." "And you might not be," he responded, frustration leaking into his tone. "This isn't just about proving you innocent. It's about learning what truly happened. We have to be open to possibilities." Jack's heart thudded in his chest as silence enveloped them, both of them contemplating the fragile mosaic of trust they'd built. The crack was there now, a fissure resulting from fear clouding judgment. The next morning arrived far too soon. Jack found himself fidgeting with his work tools, a cup of coffee cooling beside him. As he approached the diner, anticipation and dread mingled in his stomach. He could sense a tipping point on the horizon, something that could either bind them together or unravel everything he had fought for. Would Clara's revelations prove enlightening or lead to a deeper conflict? Jack's heart raced as he stepped across the threshold of the diner, the bell chiming above him, a reminder that with each choice he could either forge or fracture his realities. As Clara's figure appeared through the crowd, Jack knew the moment of truth was upon him. Jack felt the diner's ambiance settle around him, a hybrid of fried food and scented coffee, yet the warmth of the room did nothing to ease the chill in his own body. Clara sat at a booth near the back, her framed silhouette a stark contrast against the vibrant chaos of the patrons. She tapped her fingers nervously against the laminated menu, a distinct rhythm that echoed her anxiety. As he approached, he noted the curve of her eyebrows and the downward tilt of her lips, an unmissable mix of wariness and defiance. They exchanged brief pleasantries before a heavy silence loomed over them, each lost in their thoughts and weighing the importance of this moment. "Thanks for coming," Jack broke the stillness, willing to steer the conversation toward the heart of the matter. "I know this isn't easy, but I believe we can talk it out." Clara's gaze flickered, drawing her attention to the window, the morning sun streaming in and illuminating dust motes that hung in the air. "Do you really think talking will change anything? I just see a pattern here. Someone's loved one versus an accusation wrapped in a pretty lie." Her voice trembled slightly, revealing the fragility of her position. "That's the thing, Clara," he countered, leaning forward slightly to bridge the gap. "I don't want to dismiss your feelings, but I can't ignore my own instincts about Lisa. There has to be more we can unravel together." This proclamation hung thick in the air, and Clara's expression shifted, uncertainty flashing across her eyes. What if everything you think is wrong? She challenged, the tension in her voice bridging into urgency. I wouldn't know that until we discuss it. Jack's response was measured, trying to maintain the balance between assertiveness and empathy. I want to hear your side. It's necessary. Not just for Lisa's sake, but for both of us. We can't navigate this like enemies. Clara shifted, her arms crossing defensively over her chest, the protective stance making apparent her internal struggles. You think we can just work together? When I've already been painted as the villain? I think we can try, Jack replied, steadily searching her eyes for signs of openness. I don't know your full story yet, but I need you to know that my loyalty to Lisa doesn't have to mean discrediting your experiences. A tense moment passed, and Jack could feel the cracks forming in Clara's defenses. Perhaps offering her a glimpse of understanding was the fulcrum he needed to shift the dialogue. Let's start from the beginning. What made you so certain Lisa is lying? Clara hesitated, chewing her lip as if the words were stuck. I saw her with that stack of cash, she muttered finally. And then later, when the allegations surfaced, the way you both reacted, it felt like a setup. Jack's heart sank at the implications of her words, but he refused to let anger cloud his judgment. And what about your situation? The pressures at work? The mounting bills? Could that affect your perspective? This question struck a chord, Clara nodding slowly, albeit begrudgingly. I'm trying my best, but when you're drowning, you look for a life raft anywhere it's thrown. The admission cascaded, revealing layers he hadn't anticipated. Then let's be each other's life raft, Jack proposed, a new determination igniting within him. We both have people we care about who depend on us. If we can navigate this truthfully together, we might just save ourselves along the way. As she considered his words, he could see her calculating the risks. There was almost a faint flicker of a connection threading through their fraught dialogue. Suddenly, Jack realized that he wasn't just trying to defend Lisa anymore. He was forging a potential ally in Clara. Yet, it was a fragile alliance, and through the blink of an eye, an eruption of voices from the counter shattered his thoughts. I can't believe you'd accuse her. My wife doesn't lie. A burly man's roar turned heads across the diner, and Jack's stomach dropped as he recognized him, Lisa's father. The already tumultuous air thickened. Jack's options narrowed. He had a choice: escape from the escalating drama or dive deeper into the chaos that his life had become, igniting a firestorm of consequences for everyone involved. What would the confrontation reveal? Jack felt the weight of the man's words settle over him like a cold fog. Lisa's father, a figure he had always considered intimidating, now stood looming in the diner's tight space, his fury palpable and his loyalty to his daughter radiating with every word. Jack's instinct screamed for self-preservation, yet the thrust of asserting the truth for all involved lured him further into the storm. Mr. Holloway, please, Jack began, attempting to tone down the urgency of the situation, but the man's face contorted in disbelief, eyes blazing like a furnace of anger. Clara's tension mirrored his own, caught in the crosshairs of unresolved emotions. Are you here to defend that liar? Lisa's father spat, stepping forward, because I'll tell you right now, nobody accuses my family without consequences. Jack pressed his palms against the table, feeling the cool plastic beneath him steadying his resolve. He had come seeking truth, yet found himself amidst a whirlwind of accusations and blurred loyalties. I'm not here to defend anyone, but to understand. What does that make us if we can't talk? Clara's expression shifted, revealing an empathy he had not anticipated. She glanced at Mr. Holloway, then met Jack's eyes, a flicker of hope threading between them in the chaos. The realization struck him. Every moment spent defending Lisa put an unnecessary wedge between understanding and resolution. What's it going to take for you to see things from my side? She implored, now directing her question not just to Jack, but to the very air around them, as if encompassing all their shared fears. Maybe it starts with admitting we're all scared, he said, noting how genuine vulnerability could bridge their divides. Jack turned back to Mr. Holloway. "We're all just trying to make sense of something that's wrecking lives." The tension in the room hung thick as Mr. Holloway's expression softened, if only a fraction. "I just want to protect my daughter," he murmured, almost to himself. "Then help us uncover the truth," Jack urged, feeling his heart race. "There's no harm in asking the tough questions." Suddenly, his own vulnerability surged forth, and he realized how deeply he had underestimated Clara's plight. She was not just a competitor, but a person ensnared in her own web of hardship. "Clara, if you saw something, you can't keep quiet. You once said you were drowning. Let's pull each other to the surface." For a moment, silence enveloped them, fractional and dense with possibility. Clara took a deep breath, her posture shifting from defensive to contemplative. "I don't trust easily, Jack, but maybe this is bigger than me." Mr. Holloway, still rigid but less hostile, nodded slowly. "I can't stand by idly watching my child suffer," he conceded, the fight leaving his stance. As the realization of a shared cause began to surface, Jack felt a tingle of hope. It wasn't just about Lisa anymore, it was a collective struggle to find clarity within chaos. Their different motives were all stitched into the same fabric of confusion. "Let's be honest about what happened that day," Clara urged, crossing the invisible bridge between them. "And if there's more to this, if Lisa made mistakes, we can address them honestly." Jack felt the stirrings of a plan materializing in his mind, pieces falling into place like a puzzle he hadn't realized he was solving. He could usher members of this fractured group towards a resolution that offered vulnerability over hostility. In an instance where enemies could become allies, what clarity awaited? Just as he opened his mouth to propose a meeting of minds, the clatter of dishes broke through the moment, slicing the tension. A waitress dropped a few plates, her startled gasp an unwelcome intrusion. Suddenly, all eyes were once again on them, the world outside their discussion creeping back into focus. Jack's heart raced, aware this new distraction might derail everything they had just begun. If they could talk through this chaotic moment, perhaps the real work could begin afterward. Where would this collective journey toward truth lead? Would they be able to rise above individual fears, embrace the role of allies, and confront the looming specter of lies? The next moment would determine everything. Jack's mind scrambled as he peered around the diner, trying to reassemble the fragments of their conversation amid the disarray. The waitress busied herself with retrieving the fallen plates, her gesture a stark reminder of how quickly moments could slip from one reality to another. The fear of regression hung thickly in the air, a lingering specter of discord ready to overshadow what they had tentatively begun to build. "Let's focus," Jack urged, raising his voice slightly to cut through the noise. "People are watching us. We need to show that we can work together." A subtle nod from Clara affirmed his call to action, the resolve in her expression somehow firmer after that primal moment of chaos. Mr. Holloway's stance had softened further, the fatherly instinct to protect beginning to be overshadowed by a desire for truth. "Why don't we step outside? Get some fresh air," Clara suggested, her voice low but steady. "We can find a space where we're less observed." Jack's heart lifted at her suggestion. However, stepping outside meant transitioning from confrontation to collaboration, and that quantum leap felt daunting. As they rose from the table, a mixture of uncertainty and determination seethed within him. Each step toward the door felt like walking into an unknown, but the glimmers of trust they were starting to forge pushed him forward. Once outside, the air was cool and crisp, offering a breath of relief. Sunlight slanted against the pavement, illuminating their faces. Jack took a moment to gather their collective momentum. "Let's lay everything out," he proposed, leaning against a brick wall. "No more half-truths and fear, just the raw facts." Mr. Holloway practically gritted his teeth, but the anxious shift in his feet indicated he was willing to engage. "Fine, but only if you speak honestly, Jack. That includes clarity on where you fit in all of this," he replied, his voice low yet controlled. "What do you mean?" Jack asked, caught off guard. "Your feelings for Lisa. Are you here seeking justice or to save your own skin?" Holloway probed. The accusation landed hard, and for a moment Jack hesitated, contemplating the truth of Mr. Holloway's words. His feelings toward Lisa carved a complicated path through his intentions. He had come seeking resolution, but soon realized he was also deeply invested in her well-being. "I'm not looking to save myself," he asserted cautiously, wondering how much truth he could lay bare without losing their trust. "I want what's best for her. It's become personal." The acknowledgement hung in the air, charged and unsteady. Clara's expression shifted again, a blend of curiosity and concern. "Then maybe you can help us confront our fears, whether that's about Lisa or our own failures." Jack felt an invisible tether pull taut. This was the crux of it. They could either spiral into blame or find a way to collaborate. "Agreed. We all have fears, but we can't let them define us. We need to address what happened that day." As he spoke, he suddenly realized that his own vulnerabilities could serve as a bridge, galvanizing the group, channeling their discord into a collective purpose. Yet the looming question remained. Would they commit to this mutual vulnerability, or would it all unravel before he could guide them to a shared resolution? "Tell us what you know, Clara," he urged, sensing that the time had come to transform potential into action. "What did you see that day?" Clara opened her mouth, but just as words began to form, the abrupt blare of a car horn shattered the silence. A confrontation was about to unravel, one that would test not just Clara's courage, but also the fragile momentum they had built. Jack's stomach tightened as he braced for her response, the air thick with the weight of unyielding truths still struggling to emerge. Would this moment fulfill their potential for honesty, or result in irrevocable damage? Clara's response hung in the air, tantalizingly close, yet fragile as a spider's web. The car horn had punctured the tension like a needle, and for a fleeting moment, Jack's focus wavered. He could feel the unsteady rhythm of his heart aligning with the collective dread that loomed before them, palpable enough to choke any resolve. "Clara," Jack prompted, his voice steadier than he felt. "We need your truth. It's crucial." She shifted, her eyes darting to Mr. Holloway, then back to Jack. The flicker of doubt was undeniable, but there was also a steeliness behind her hesitation that hinted at untapped courage. Jack held her gaze, hoping to convey a silent promise that honesty would serve them well. He sensed that her words might either scatter their already fragile unity or engrave it in stone. Just as Clara hesitated, the echoes of earlier conversations cascaded through his mind. Regrets, ramifications, the simmering chaos. Jack reminded himself that growth often stemmed from discomfort. "Trust is built in moments like this," he decided to say, channeling his thoughts into words crafted to inspire rather than intimidate. "We can't begin to heal without first understanding the truth of that day. What did you see?" The moment stretched, an elastic band ready to snap. Clara finally inhaled, grounding herself against the emotional backdraft. "I saw something that doesn't add up. Lisa wasn't just in the wrong place. She was there for a reason." Her brow furrowed, and Jack noted with interest that she began to unravel the pieces, her grip on the narrative gaining strength as she spoke. Mr. Holloway emitted a disbelieving grunt, his arms crossed defensively. "What does that even mean, Clara? Are you suggesting that she had something to do with the chaos?" "No," Clara shot back, a spark igniting in her eyes. "I'm saying that there were things happening that none of us understood the day it all went down. Like you, Jack, what were you doing there? Did you act out of love, or did fear guide your actions?" Her determination unraveling truth seemed to challenge Mr. Holloway's dominating presence, and Jack felt a mixture of pride and concern. Jack began, the confusion inside him ricocheting off every unexamined emotion. "I was trying to protect her, but in that haze of panic, I almost failed her." The admission clawed its way to the surface, raw and unfiltered. The dichotomy was stark. His instinct to shield Lisa clashed with his debilitating self-doubt about whether he could truly protect himself in the end. Protect her? Or yourself? Holloway countered, his tone slicing through the vulnerable air. Your intentions might not even matter if you're caught up in blaming everyone else for her being involved. As confrontations rippled through the air, Jack realized the clock was ticking. They could either fracture into blame or find a way to weave their experiences into something more robust. What if we confront what we're really afraid of? What if our biggest fears are the ones we can't address? He asked, seeking a way to navigate this precarious chasm between them. Clara's head nodded slowly, mulling over his proposition. The tension in her shoulders eased slightly, a flicker of hope igniting in her core. You mean, face the real reason we're here? The truth we all fear the most? Jack could feel the gravity of his next words hanging delicately in the balance. Yes, let's bring everything into the light. We're all flawed here, but together, we can make this right. Each word felt like casting a lifeline into uncertain waters, but Jack sensed that they needed to take this leap in order to navigate their path forward. Clara's expression grew thoughtful. Then I'll share the whole truth, one that could change everything. Suddenly, from behind them, the approaching sound of footsteps stirred the air, heavy and deliberate. Jack's heart raced as he turned, the uncertain peace of the moment shattering anew. Were they about to welcome a new revelation, or an adversary who could unravel whatever thread of connection they had begun to weave? The footsteps grew louder, each stride echoing with an urgency that sent a chill down Jack's spine. He spun around, ready to confront whatever shadow loomed behind them, his heart pounding louder than the footsteps themselves. The door creaked open, and a figure emerged, imposing and wrapped in a cloak of authority. It was a police officer, his expression stern and unreadable. "Good afternoon," the officer said, eyeing each of them meticulously. "I'm here to ask some questions regarding the incident on the night of the—" He paused, clearly weighing his next words. "The commotion." Jack braced himself. The officer's presence felt like a spotlight exposing their fears to the world, and he could sense his chance of finding camaraderie with Clara slipping away. Yet, amid the turmoil, he saw an opportunity, a chance to redefine the course of their confrontation. It struck him that this was a pivotal moment, and his response could either solidify their bond or fracture it completely. "Officer," Jack began, his voice stronger than he felt, "we were just discussing what happened that night. We believe there's more to the story than what was reported." Clara shot him a look of surprise, yet her eyes reflected a curiosity that sparked a flicker of hope within him. The officer crossed his arms, skepticism playing across his features. "And what makes you think you hold any information that could change the narrative?" Jack's resolve sharpened. "Because we were there, all of us. We faced our fears, and rather than let them consume us, we're ready to face the truth." Each word served as a bridge, a way to connect not just with Clara and Holloway, but also with the officer, personifying the urgency of their shared quest for resolution. Clara took a deep breath, emboldened, and added, "I witnessed things that could help clarify everything. We owe it to ourselves and Lisa to be honest." Holloway shifted uncomfortably, glancing between Clara's determined gaze and Jack's newfound purpose. He had always been the voice of authority in the room, and Jack could see the cracks forming in that facade. Perhaps the fear of facing a weaker self was even more daunting than the risk of vulnerability in his peers. The officer studied them for what felt like an eternity. Jack sensed the tension among their trio. His stomach knotted in anticipation of the reaction, a blend of anxiety and hope battling within him. "You understand," the officer finally replied, "that speaking out can have serious ramifications. This isn't just an offhand discussion, it's a witness statement you're talking about." Jack felt the weight of those words drop like a stone in his heart. With the stakes laid bare, the decision felt monumental. Could he navigate through the myriad of fears coursing through him? He remembered what he had said to Clara moments ago about confronting the very fears that haunted them. This was a defining moment for him to embody that truth. "I'll take the responsibility," Jack stated, conviction weaving through the cracks of his self-doubt. "Whatever comes, I'm ready to face it. We need to dig deeper, not just for ourselves, but for Lisa." As he scanned their faces, he witnessed not just his own courage awakening, but a flicker of courage reflecting back from Clara, and even the begrudging acknowledgement in Holloway's eyes. "Okay," the officer replied, his expression softening slightly. "Let's start from the beginning." Jack felt a rush of adrenaline coursing through him, blending exhilarating anxiety with a sense of empowerment. Each question posed would propel him closer to discovery, unveiling hidden aspects of himself he had long buried under layers of fear and guilt. The potential for growth felt limitless. Yet even as he prepared to dive deeper, a nagging thought crept in. What if this journey led to uncomfortable revelations about himself? What if the truth unveiled something he'd rather keep buried? But perhaps those were the very truths he needed to face. As they settled in to recount the night's events, Jack's realization solidified. The past could be a conduit for growth. With every question they answered, they weren't just probing old wounds, they were reclaiming their narratives. And just as they began to weave their stories together, Jack felt something shift. The air itself seemed to thrum around them, pulsating with a tension that hinted at revelations yet to come, a suspense vibrating at the edge of clarity. The officer suddenly leaned in, his voice low. "There's one more thing I need to tell you," he said, pausing to gauge the gravity of his words. Jack's heart raced again. What more awaited them in the labyrinth of their fractured truths? Jack's focus sharpened, instantly sensing the officer's hesitation was more than just a calculated pause. The weight of unspoken words hung like a noose, tightening around him. The very air felt thick with anticipation, and for a fleeting moment he grappled with the possibility that their inquiry might uncover more than he bargained for. "What is it?" Clara asked, her voice breaking through the tension, a mixture of curiosity and trepidation. The officer cleared his throat, his brow furrowed. "I need you to understand the depth of what you're stepping into. Your statements today might not only affect your lives, but countless others. The night you witnessed, it was layered in complications." Jack swallowed hard, caught in the undertow of his choices. As the implications settled, he felt an ache, a growing realization that the journey wasn't just about seeking justice for Lisa. It was about confronting the demons he tried to ignore for far too long. "Complications?" Holloway interjected skeptically. "What do you mean?" "Can we just hear what you have to say?" Jack urged, pushing past his own rising anxiety. This wasn't just about the story anymore. It was about their evolution, their chance to confront the reckoning they all silently feared. He needed to be brave, not just for himself, but for the fragile connections weaving them together. "Fine," the officer said, suppressing a sigh. "You'll want to know that the situation is more convoluted than just a tragic event. There are elements at play you might not have anticipated, forces that can manipulate the truth." Jack felt a shiver electrifying his spine. "Forces? You mean there are people involved who don't want the truth to come out?" The officer nodded, his serious demeanor sharpening the contours of his face. "Precisely. People with influence who might see you as a risk if you continue down this path. Your honesty might be taken as a threat." Jack could almost see the images flashing in his mind, shadows rummaging through memories, veiled threats lurking in the corners. This was the conflict he dreaded. The thought of facing such adversarial forces ignited a flame of determination. In confronting his past, he had unknowingly stepped into a web that tangled their fates beyond their understanding. "Are you saying we—" Clara started, disbelief clouding her voice. "Yes," the officer interrupted, his eyes probing their expressions. "In order to protect yourself and others, you will need to navigate this carefully. The truth may be overwhelming, but the lies can have far-reaching consequences." Each word acted like a mirror reflecting their fears, unveiling aspects of their characters they hadn't acknowledged. Jack could feel the surge of defiance rising within him. Let them come. If they think they can silence us with fear, they're mistaken. I won't go back to being the person who hides. The truth is not always empowering, the officer warned, though it lacked the weight he intended. You need to be prepared for the fallout. His warning resonated, igniting questions swirling in Jack's mind. Was he truly ready? This was more than a moral stand. It could unravel his carefully constructed world. Yet amidst the uncertainty, a firm backbone of resolve began to form. "What's the plan?" Holloway asked grimly, no longer the authority figure but an equal contender in a battle they had unwittingly joined. As Jack met the eyes of his companions, an unwavering commitment solidified among them. They stood on the precipice of a collective reckoning, the uncertainty ahead offering both trepidation and potential. The officer shifted, drawing their attention back. "Before we go any further, I need you to think hard about whether you want to proceed. Once you decide to move forward, there's no turning back." Facing the gravity of such words, Jack felt his heart quicken. "I'm ready, and I think Clara and Holloway are too," he said, looking at them for confirmation. Clara nodded, her resolve illuminating her features, while Holloway hesitated, as though grappling not just with the decision to testify, but the realization of a shared vulnerability. "Meet me tonight," the officer finally said, "and I'll share what I know. This is where the real work begins." As they stepped out of the room, Jack's pulse raced. The specter of consequences hovered overhead, yet he felt more alive than ever. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but each uncertain turn ignited a fire of determination buried deep within him. In the back of his mind, questions thrummed restlessly. What else lurked beneath the surface? What hidden truths awaited their unearthing? The shadowy intricacies of the night they faced loomed larger than imagined, and Jack realized he couldn't pull away now. Destiny was nudging him toward something bigger. Just as they left the building, a chilling thought struck Jack. Was it truly the truth they were after, or had they unwittingly unleashed a force beyond their control? Little did he know, the stakes would escalate in ways none of them could predict. The fluorescent lights flickered above Jack as he stepped into the conference room. His thoughts swirled like ominous clouds, each potential outcome crashing against him with increasing urgency. The officer's words replayed in his mind, each phrase a mental echo that rattled his core. "Tonight is the night," he murmured to himself, efforting to steal resolve from the air around him. As Clara and Holloway entered, their own expressions were a mix of grit and uncertainty, mirroring his internal conflict. He could sense the resolve among them, yet an almost palpable fear lay just beneath the surface. "You ready?" Clara asked, her eyes searching for affirmation. The fight in them both ignited as they shared a glance, the understanding that they were in this together. "Yeah," Jack replied, but felt the weight of understatement. The gravity of what lay ahead was far beyond mere ability. It was about willingness and sacrifice. They gathered around the table, the clicked pens and rustling papers punctuating the tense atmosphere. Jack's mind waded through the implications of their choices, wondering about the transformation that hovered at the edge of their commitment. Not just a fight for justice, but a confrontation with himself, a dismantling of old fears and a reformation of who he wished to become. As the clock ticked, anticipation melded with anxiety. Holloway cleared his throat, disrupting Jack's thoughts. "So, what do we know about this officer?" It was a well-placed question that needed answering amidst the shroud of doubt. "Not much, except he's dedicated to unveiling these convoluted layers," Jack responded, tracing a finger over the table's edge. "But can we trust him? Are we ready to gamble on that trust?" "Is there even a choice?" Clara interjected, her voice edging toward defiance. Jack admired her fierce spirit, but sensed the precariousness of their plight. The truth wasn't just an ethical pursuit, it was a dangerous game. The room fell silent, and for Jack, the stillness heightened the inner turbulence coursing through him. He considered his past, how often he had concealed himself behind walls of indecision. Perhaps this encounter would require more than bravery. It would require him to wrestle openly with his vulnerability, allowing others to witness his flaws. The door creaked open, and the officer entered, an almost ghostly figure in stark contrast to their everyday lives. The suddenness of his presence jolted Jack, serving as a solemn reminder that the reality of their situation was about to unfold. He couldn't shake an instinctive fear of his own discovery. Would he falter when moments demanded clarity? "Thanks for coming," the officer stated, his voice heavy with expectation. "I have information that could either help or hinder your pursuit, depending on your readiness to face it." Jack's heart raced, pulses echoing between his ears. "We're ready to hear it," he asserted, driven by a mixture of bravery and desperation. Their journey had brought them to this threshold, and they needed to draw upon every ounce of courage within. As the officer detailed the web of deceit and betrayal, Jack absorbed each revelation, parsing through the implications like painful ink drying on fragile parchment. The depths they were about to plunge into felt frightening but oddly liberating. Clara and Holloway exchanged glances, emotions teetering between fear and fierce resolve. "Remember," the officer cautioned, cutting through their shared intensity. "With this knowledge, you may become targets. Are you truly prepared for what this entails?" Jack couldn't evade that question any longer. It echoed in his mind. What was he willing to sacrifice? For too long, he'd allowed his past wounds to dictate choices. This was his moment to dismantle those chains, to reforge his identity not as a victim, but as a competitor in a larger game. "I won't step back," he declared, embodying the strength he sought. His voice rang with a conviction he hadn't known he possessed. After all, he owed it to himself, to Lisa, and to the connections they had forged. As they deliberated their next steps, an unsettling hitch wove through Jack's thoughts. He knew the path was fraught with peril, and yet the reckoning felt almost invigorating. Each layer of truth peeled back before him revealed not just others' hidden secrets, but also his buried strengths. The officer's gaze bore into Jack. "Just remember, every choice has consequences." Jack's heart thundered in response. Would he regret pushing forward, or would this be the genesis of his true self? The tension wrapped around them tight as they awaited their next move, pulses racing into the uncertain shadows looming at the edges of their resolve. One question remained, gnawing at Jack's insides. How far would they truly go to unveil the truth? The hours crept by, with Jack feeling every minute like a countdown to confrontation, where the ultimate test would challenge all aspects of who he was, forging his identity in the crucible of truth and consequence. Little did he know, an unexpected voice awaited them on the other side of their decision, one that could shift the balance irreparably. Jack stood at the table, the weight of the world hanging on his shoulders as he faced Clara and Holloway, their eyes bright with determination while shadowed by fear. Each moment ticked away like the quiet ticking of a time bomb, and as the officer recounted the layers of deception they were about to peel back, Jack grasped the magnitude of their journey. This was no longer simply about proving Lisa's innocence. It had transformed into a quest for truth that would challenge every fiber of their beings. "Are you ready for this?" Clara asked, her voice a raw mixture of fear and resolve. Jack's pulse raced. Acknowledging their collective responsibility meant relinquishing any pretense of control he had once believed he possessed. "I am," he stated, forcing himself to embody the conviction he desperately sought. "We owe it to ourselves and to Lisa." He could see Clara's relief bolster her nerves, while even Holloway softened slightly, revealing the protective father he truly was beneath the rough exterior. They were more than adversaries now. They were allies united by a common purpose. As the officer shared the details, Jack felt his resolve fortify. The intricate dance of manipulation he described shed light on the hidden complexities that had entangled them all. He listened intently as the officer detailed the forces at play, the individuals whose actions had sent ripples through their lives. Each truth you unearth not only illuminates the past, but shapes your future, the officer cautioned, his voice steady but laced with the gravity of his message. What you discover today will test your bonds, force you to confront your fears, and unveil truths that could change everything. Jack took a deep breath, bracing himself for the turbulence ahead. Then we will face it together, he affirmed, a flicker of something powerful igniting within him. This was a moment of inherent growth, a chance to transform the pain of the past into a stepping stone for the future. Their discussions spiraled into the evening, the weight of discovery tangible in the air. Jack found himself articulating thoughts he had never allowed himself to express before, tying together lost threads of his life and crystallizing his intentions as he unpacked his feelings, fears, and experiences. When they finally reached a consensus and Jack resolved to face the tumultuous truth head-on, it felt remarkably liberating. We need to confront this publicly, to assert our narrative and ensure our experiences are acknowledged, he proposed, fully understanding the repercussions it might unleash. You're right, Clara replied, her voice emboldened. We have to stand firmly for ourselves, for Lisa. We can't let fear dictate our future any longer. Holloway nodded, a newfound respect blooming within the depths of his gaze. No matter what happens next, our unity is our strongest asset. As the trio meticulously crafted their strategy, it became clear that they had transformed into a force greater than the sum of their parts. Jack recognized that he had grown along this trajectory, moving from a reactive state to one of proactive engagement. No longer would he sidestep the chaos of life. He would plunge headfirst into it, forging connections and rebuilding trust as he sought the truth. Hours later, with the dawn breaking, Jack stood outside the diner, the world still cloaked in a hushed blanket of mourning. As he breathed deeply, he felt a clarity washing over him, a profound understanding of who he had become and what he aimlessly sought to achieve. Tackling the truth head-on wouldn't just dissipate the fear, it would liberate him. "Jack!" Clara called, rushing to join him. "You did it! You led us all to this unity." His heart swelled with pride. They had come so far. "No, we did it together," he replied, recognition in his voice. He couldn't have accomplished this without their collective courage. Over time, their efforts bore fruit. As they publicly shared their story, the hidden truths began to surface, unraveling the pain that had spun out of control. They faced backlash, but through it came undeniable growth. Jack felt a surge of confidence as he stood alongside Clara and Holloway, each lending their voices to uplift one another in the pursuit of justice for Lisa. Ultimately, as they emerged into the light of this new understanding, Jack sensed a remarkable change within himself. He was no longer simply a husband defending his wife. He had become an advocate for truth, embodying integrity and resilience. With each hurdle they faced, he found strength, not just for himself, but as part of a collective journey marked by honesty and accountability. And so, as they stood together, intertwined in their newfound connections, Jack realized his greatest victory was not merely resolving the conflict, but recognizing his own evolution. He had proven to himself that he was capable of confronting challenges, transforming fear into freedom and vulnerability into strength. Never again would he shrink away from the complexities of life. He would embrace them with open arms. It was a new dawn, and at that moment, Jack understood that he had not just salvaged a relationship, but had also unearthed the profound power of constructive engagement, a lesson that could change him infinitely. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.